Welcome back. Man, big day. Real estate's down and the stock market's up, and people are trying to figure out how to kind of create that plan, I think, to capitalize. And a lot of people, when they are trying to create their plan, are certainly just trying to figure out, okay, how can I kind of cut bait? And Wes Jones certainly does give an option for that with short sales. Michael Feinsberg's here with us now, who's practiced bankruptcy law for more than 30 years and has really represented clients in most of the major bankruptcy cases in Washington. Welcome, Michael.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And so talk a little bit about, Wes was talking about real estate and, real estate kind of as it pertains to bankruptcy and what you're seeing.
Well, we've been through, I think, the worst of the financial disaster. And most of the people who are holding real estate, if they're still fortunate to have it, are in a position right now of having to make a decision, whether it be commercial property or investment property, a lot they've been putting together. And at this point, they've been probably carrying a mortgage for about 4 years. They had no prospects of sale. The economy's starting to pick up, and they're thinking, can I really hold on to this property, or is it time for me to cut my losses and move on to some other investment?
Right, like the stock market, because it's all the way up, right? So everybody's thinking that. And so when people have these real estate investments, and I imagine, we're talking commercial, it could just be, some rental properties. A lot of people bought rental properties back in the heyday of everything. Why are people with real estate investments filing for bankruptcy particularly?
There are a number of reasons. People with raw land or development property are filing principally to try to get some more time because they're tired of paying the payments or they don't want to pay, and they think that bankruptcy is a way of getting either forestalling foreclosure or getting some relief. In most cases, that's not true. People with commercial properties are filing principally to try to refinance their loans. In many cases, they're having what Wes was talking about, the difficulty in sourcing funds to refinance the mortgage. And if you have a good piece of rental property, bankruptcy is a very viable option for, in essence, forcing your lender to come to the table and possibly getting some additional time or refinancing on what would be favorable terms.
And so we had talked about this before you came on, but in a lot of cases, people are just looking for a way to maybe refinance those terms. They may be coming into these big payments that have to be made, and they can't do it.
Right. That's those people, with respect to income-producing properties, are good candidates for bankruptcy. One of the big changes in the bankruptcy law in 2005 was there's something called a single-asset real estate case. And what Congress intended to do was to make it very, very difficult for people who have entities that just have real estate as their assets to file bankruptcy and to forestall foreclosure. Under the 2005 amendments, and a person who's has a single asset real estate case must start commencing payments to the lender within 90 days at the non-default interest rate, or file a plan of reorganization within 90 days that has a reasonable chance of being confirmed. If you have property that's not producing income, that's virtually impossible. On the other hand, if you've got income-producing property and you can pay debt service, the court is just going to require that you continue to make debt service, and if the lender just isn't willing to make the loan, or for whatever reason, regulatory, or they want to change their business model and don't want to continue doing these kinds of loans, you have a lot of leverage with that kind of lender who can, in essence, be forced to continue to make the loan on the same terms or possibly even more favorable terms for a period of time extending into the future.
Well, okay, so let's just take a step back here, because you talk about lenders being able to refinance and whatnot, and I think a lot of people think, well, they go to their bank to refinance. You don't go into bankruptcy to start your refinance process. I don't think that's your typical way of doing it. At least people don't call me and go, hey, I'm going to declare bankruptcy so I can refinance my house. That's when we say, hey, guess what? You can't refinance for 5 years, 7 years. So this, it sounds like, although this may work in commercial properties and bringing somebody, this is hands down not a way to do this when it comes to residential and going to get a new loan.
No, you're not going to be able to do it in a residential situation. The bankruptcy laws make it very clear that you cannot modify the terms of a loan that's secured principally by your personal residence. So for a person who owns a house and is seeking relief, a short sale or one of the mortgage modification programs are a much better option in terms of trying to get some relief. I'm talking about principally commercial properties. One of the features of the bankruptcy code, which most people don't recognize, is that a debtor can take a secured debt and alter the payment terms going forward, and assuming he meets certain requirements, can actually force the lender involuntarily in some cases into accepting that treatment. In order to do that, you have to be able to make payments, and you have to be able to service a reasonable amount of debt. But assuming you can do that, bankruptcy becomes a very viable option.
Well, you're saying actually some lenders actually like bankruptcy, though. I mean, that seems pretty contrary.
Well, lenders like bankruptcy for a number of reasons. One is...
Because that seems pretty off the wall, Michael. I don't think a lot of banks like, man, I hope our people file bankruptcy, because I think in most people's minds, that's how you get out of paying the bank.
Well, why the banks like bankruptcy is in a case where they've got a difficult borrower where they've been trying to foreclose. The bankruptcy laws, in essence, permit or prohibit the borrower from doing things with his property without court permission. So the banks get a sitting target where the debtor is forced to disclose a lot of information about its finances and its assets, which it might not otherwise have to do. And at the same time, the bank is not at risk for their property going anywhere, because the effect of bankruptcy is to prevent the debtor from doing anything with its property. And
so I think what you're saying, Michael, and again, we're with Michael Feinsberg, attorney and bankruptcy specialist. I think kind of what you're saying, though, is bankruptcy kind of ties some people's hands to the system.
It does, and it's a process where you have to make full disclosure. So a lot of things that you might not want to tell your bank or tell the public in general come to light, because you've got to file all these financial schedules. If you're a debtor in bankruptcy in a commercial case, you've got to file a report every month, and you have to attach all the checks you've written. So everybody gets to see exactly how you're spending your money and on what. And
no longer is the case of this is my money that the government knows or doesn't know about.
Everybody knows about it.
Everybody knows about it.
And you can go online and get the information.
Well, Michael, thanks so much for joining us again. That's Michael Feinsberg, attorney at law with Karr, Tuttle, and Campbell. When we come back, a lot of people do think about bankruptcy as a way to start over. But what happens once you have started over? What are those next steps you can take to reach out and maybe reach some of those goals? Jeff Kopp's going to join us, owner and founder of Atlas Financial and myatlasplanner.com. My name is Ben Brashen. You're listening to Brashenomics.